Every conversation starts the same way. What do you do? Within seconds, you've reduced a person to a job title, a LinkedIn headline, or a company. At OpenTap, we believe that's a missed opportunity because behind every person is a story, a defining moment, a setback, a bold idea, a decision worth sharing. So we go beyond small talk. Welcome to OpenTap. Let's open the conversation. Every personal finance podcast starts with a very simple, naive question. What's your fire number? As if that magical number solves for everything. Guest today has gotten there. Ravi Handa achieved his financial independence in his early 30s. But what's more fascinating about his journey is not the fact that he got rich, but what he did after that. What happens when you no longer need to work every single day? What happens when your personal ambition, purpose is not tied to a paycheck? Why does somebody who has already won the game choose to start playing the game all over again with Handa Uncle? That's what we will talk about today. Welcome, Ravi.
Very happy to be here. And just one clarification, I pulled the plug at 39. So very much in the late 30s and not the early ones. But yes, fairly early than the standard 60 that seems to be the routine. And I was incredibly lucky as well as privileged to be able to do that. Really glad to be on the show and have these sort of conversations with folks about what early retirement means and it is why it is not just one number and done sort of a story.
Well, it's great to see you again, Ravi. I remember clearly meeting you in Jaipur in person almost 1.5 years back in Marriott. And it was a wonderful opportunity to meet you in person. I was following you on YouTube, especially with regard to your podcast on fire, a dream that I'm sure millions of us try to achieve and strive for. So thanks for joining in. Without wasting much time, I'll jump onto the elephant in the room, Ravi. I know you have spoken about fire in various podcasts, especially the number that defines what is enough. And at some point in time, I remember you mentioning that this is a 20x, of your annual expenses. In a world which is as volatile as it is right now, and with the inflation and uncertainty, does that number still hold true, or has that undergone a change now?
Absolutely, it holds true. What we need to understand is the nuance that it comes with. Now, if you are considering a purely mathematical calculation, which is where the concept of that 4% or the safe withdrawal rate comes into the picture. So how the safe withdrawal rate is calculated is that there was this guy called William Bengen who looked at the historical data for the US markets for, since the markets began for over 100 years. And in those 100 years, he looked at various data points and he realized that even in the worst case scenario, 4% would have worked out. So that 4%, and that was one thing. The other thing was he always assumed that, in the first year you will withdraw 4% and then you will keep on inflation adjusting it upwards. You will make no adjustments to your life, whatever happens in the world. And, you will spend the same amount of money at year 1 versus year 30, which means you will spend the same amount of money at 45 as 75. And both of those assumptions are not a very realistic perspective, to be honest, because if the market, tanks by 50% next year, I will not be taking the Europe vacations that I am taking right now. I will be able to adjust my spending. We all have some portion of, so I fully understand that, yes, there are needs. I can't stop paying my kids' school fee. I can't, stop eating, paying for groceries, paying for utilities, but I can stop traveling to Europe if there is a bad year. So that adaptability does not exist in the 4% rule. The other thing which it lacks is the idea that as you age, your intention to spend as well as your ability to spend, because you cannot move that much, goes down. So
the no-go phase.
I said, the no-go phase. So at 75, I don't really think that I will be able to do. I will be extremely privileged to do it at 55, considering how my health is. I'm not the fittest of the people. I am working on that as well. But all of these factors to be considered. So that's why I would, I to be honest, now believe that if you have a And the other part is the portfolio that they looked at was a 50% stock and a 50% bond portfolio. That's the model that they look at. So if you accommodate for these three things, that you have the ability to adjust and your expenses are not flat, that yes, I have to spend that. There can be some wiggle room. B, that you will age and you will not be that mobile later on. And C, you have a slightly better portfolio mix. With all these three considered, you can potentially do something like a 5% rule or a 20x number. So I would suggest, so that's why, the number, calling it a 4% number, I would argue that someone like me who is flexible enough, who is primarily in financial assets, who is willing to adjust his spending because of the travel, someone like me can probably do 5%, or I would put the number somewhere between 2% to 5% on a host of factors. Plus, I have this extreme, faith in my ability to adjust. I come from a reasonably privileged background. Both my parents were government servants, but I didn't really have a passport till I was 10 years or maybe 12 years ago. So forget traveling abroad. I think the first time I traveled in a flight was after college, so to say. So in case I have to make a little bit of a downward adjustment in my lifestyle, I'm very willing to do that as well, because I've not really grown with the riches, so to say. So yeah, for me, 5% works, but for you, somewhere between 2 to 5 would be the number.
Just to paraphrase, you're saying that 25x of the annual expenses still holds good. Of course, the withdrawal rate can change depending on how much you're willing to adjust your lifestyle expenses. And then, of course, your ability to continue to earn. Like in some cases, people do end up doing consulting, part-time work, and I'm sure they can build some income sources from thereof.
Sure. See, especially when it comes to early retirement, you will end up doing something or the other. More often than not, it's not really going to be something which is going to make you money, because if money is what you want to make, whatever your 20-year career has been, boss, you build money in that. No one is going to pay you more than what you are getting in your job in a new field or something that you enjoy doing.
Correct.
So because of the fundamental idea, you have reached where you have reached is because you have a certain set of skills and a certain sort of temperament. So there would be something or the other that would come up, which may or may not add any additional income, but more often than not, in the example that I've seen, there is something or the other a little bit, because you need to do something to occupy your time as well.
Yeah. And Ravi, I think I was watching your podcast this morning, and I think one of the very interesting conversations that you were having in a training course or session was the fact that you will not fund your child's education to the fullest extent. So let's say if his college education cost X, you're willing to do 70%, 80% of that, and then ask him to take a loan or her to take a loan on that, which very broadly resonates with how I think about education. But I take this a little further and ask you that, given the kind of environment and life that we live in today, I'm not discounting degrees, I'm not discounting IITians for a minute, but I'll give you some stats. In 2024 alone, 38% of IITians were not placed through college placements. That number was somewhere in that early 30s, 2025. The point I'm hinting at is like, is education today, whether it's IIT, non-IIT, making you ready to go into this world of uncertainty? Of course, tremendous opportunity, but a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unknowns. So the question is, one, can you tell me the mindset behind not fully funding your child's education? And two, in an environment of this kind, in which we are living today, does actually education hold the kind of currency it was holding for so many years? Because I'm almost becoming anti-education, not as on the extremist level, but to a large extent. So I want to just pick your brain on that.
Sure. So, considering the value of a degree or the value of an education or whatever you want to assign it as, is that going down? Yes, there is no doubt in that it is going down, because many more people are able to do it. So let's say if you go back to the 1940s, when India was just becoming an independent country, at that point of time, having just a graduation degree was considered that you are in 1% or maybe even lesser than 1% of the population, and it would get you a job. You go back something like 50 years at the time of emergency, etc. At that point of time, if in the 70s, if in the 80s, you were an engineer, that engineer from anywhere, anything, forget the IITs, if just basic fact that you were an engineer in the 70s, that was such a respected degree, and it virtually guaranteed you a pretty good career throughout. And if you compare it with today, obviously things are different. There are, even let's say 20 years ago, roughly, when I got out of college, even at that point of time, engineering no longer guaranteed, a great career or a great life. You needed to be from a decent enough college. So broadly speaking, my key point is that the value of a degree is going down because there are more people who have it now. So it's a demand and supply issue. Do we have enough enough qualified people in India right now? I don't really think so that we do. So there is a long way for such a saturation to come in, that someone with just a 12th pass, just a high school graduation, will be able to build a career or live a good life in India. That's substantially far away. That happens in the developed economies. I am aware of that. But in India, that's still very far away. And then coming to the second part of it, which you are saying, that why would I want to not finance my kids' 100% education? That's primarily based on a few of the things that I have seen people around me do. People who were, because I was involved a lot in the education sector, primarily teaching MBA students. And MBA is a costly, really, really expensive program. In the MBA program, which sometimes can cost up to 50 lakh rupees, and typically anywhere from 20 lakh to 50 lakh rupees, a lot of people can afford that in India, and a lot of people cannot afford that in India for their kids. But I also saw a few parents who could actually afford to finance their kids' education, but still they chose to finance a part of it and made the kid take a loan. And this was not done for tax reasons or anything like that. This was primarily done so that the kid takes a certain amount of responsibility on his head. So the kid is aware of, as soon as they start making money, that they have to repay that loan that needs to go out. So that makes a lot of difference. And that's what I would also want my kid to sort of have, that sort of responsibility on his head, that, whatever he's earning, a certain part of it has to go back to the loan, because he's never going to pay me back, but to the bank he will.
Awesome. I'm going to just use this as a segue, Ravi, to talk about one of the most interesting concepts that I have learned in my journey of personal finance. And I'll be honest, even being a CA, I feel it's pretty much late in the game that I understood the concept of CAGR. I'll give an example of one stock. In 1981, you invested, let's say, 10,000 rupees in that stock, and you just let it grow. It's almost like one of those stocks which you bought and forgot because you couldn't find it somewhere. That money has become roughly 400 to 500 crores in one single stock. And that company is Wipro. The reason I bring this example, Ravi, is to just drive home the point and importance of CAGR, compounding, right? And this is me talking personally about our school education, college education, what we get taught at home. I don't think so this concept is taught to us with the importance that it deserves, right, across the board. And I want to understand from your perspective, how does one inculcate this concept, with, I would say, kids, teenagers, college going folks? Because in my well journey, I feel it's not intelligence. It's just consistency and patience. And of course, being with the right companies, which offers a little bit of, luck. But then going back to compounding, how does one teach these concepts to people so that they start to benefit from this?
Fair. I wish I had a good answer to that, but I don't. Is it important? Yes. Is it helpful, powerful, something that can be life-changing? Yes. I'm not denying the importance of it one bit. However, how is this something that can be inculcated in kids? I don't really have a good answer to that. What I have seen is, in some of the schools, I do see them pushing a little towards financial literacy, and they have these sort of seminars and some sort of small courses and small booklets that they start giving kids so that they become financially aware. I have seen a lot of initiatives where these financial quizzes of sorts are conducted for kids, where RBI, I believe, conducts one of them. There are these fintech Olympiad is another one that I am aware of. So there are activities which happen. As parents, you can obviously do a certain set of jobs to, like, you teach them moral values. Very similarly, you teach them financial values as well. But I'm afraid if you find something good for this, please let me know. I'll try and implement that with my kid as well.
I'm still figuring it out, Ravi. And I know with kids it's difficult to teach, but you know what? They model their behavior based on what they see. And one of the best articles I saw on this topic, Ravi, was I think in Mint or the wealth paper that Times of India comes up with. It spoke about a very simple example, Ravi. And I think, I don't know if that resonates with you. It talks about having 3 piggy banks at home, right? And I forgot at what age you can start this. And then each piggy bank has a name. So one is an expense piggy bank, right? The other one is an income piggy bank. And the other one is an asset piggy bank. So every time the kid puts, let's say, 100 rupees in each of these, you end up paying 20 rupees on top of the investment piggy bank, right? And it's just a habit that, hey, if I put some chocolates here or money here, I get 2 extra chocolates. So investment is a good thing, right? And then maybe over a period of 6 months, you say, hey, you have, 20, 40 or 50 dairy milks, for yourself. That's the best example I've seen of how compounding can be taught. Yeah.
Right.
But I think the reason I'm focusing on that so much, Ravi, is I'm sure your journey, even my journey, I think if I look back, compounding is what has worked for us, really well. Of course, you have to be lucky with the right stocks, but get quick rich schemes can only lend you into trouble. So compounding patience is what actually ends up, giving you what you need. Anyway, shifting gears, Ravi, on Handa Uncle. But before I go to Handa Uncle, I want to again give you some statistics. And this comes from me from a recent example of a friend. He's based in Canada. He's one of my best friends. He comes to India, to Delhi. And as everybody wants to start securing the future, he looks around for investments. And then he goes to one of those uncles, in Delhi, and who has been helping the family with investments. And he puts whatever, 20, 30, 40 lakhs with that person. And thanks to my association with people like yourself and some SEBI registered advisors, I've realized that you lose so much money paying mutual fund distribution commission, something that you've recently spoken about in a tweet. And I did a simple math. So if somebody puts a 20 lakh rupee today, and let's say this is a CAGR of 12 to 15%, over the next 20 years, you're almost giving away 60 to 65 lakhs worth of rupees in commission, because there's commission to be paid and the missed opportunity on top of that. So can you tell me how Handa Uncle is going to solve for this? And then what's your take to people who are looking to do investments in mutual fund, but aren't sure where to invest? And I'm sure the education around direct versus regular plan is not very clear. How does one go about doing this?
Fair. So the entire idea of direct mutual funds versus regular mutual funds is, direct mutual funds is something that you can buy from the company website where there are no commissions that need to be paid. Regular mutual funds are if you are buying through an intermediary. That intermediary will be a mutual fund distributor who will get commissions. And for those commissions, his job is to advise you, to help you, to guide you, make your investments better. A lot of the mutual fund distributors actually do that. They help you, they guide you, they stop you from making bad investment decisions. But a large number of them, and I would say majority of them, don't really provide those sort of services. They are broadly driven more by the commission routine. And as an investor, it is often very difficult for you or for me to figure out that, okay, which guy is a good guy and which guy is a bad guy. There aren't any Google ratings to help you with this sort of stuff. So that is why SEBI has come up with a different framework, which is the Registered Investment Advisory Framework. Now, these RIAs, they don't really get any commissions. They will charge you a fee, and they will charge whatever fee they want. They want to charge you a fee of 1 lakh rupees, they'll charge you a fee of 1 lakh rupees. They want to charge a fee of 1,000 rupees, they can charge 1,000 rupees. They want to charge a fee of around, I think the max allowed is 2% of the portfolio. I'm not 100% sure, but they're allowed to charge 2% of the portfolio. So they'll charge that. They'll tell you what they are charging. And as long as they keep providing you the service, you keep paying. The problem with the commissions is it goes on for life. Even if the other person has stopped advising you, Even if you die and your mutual funds have gone to your next of kin, your son, even then it'll keep on paying out commissions to the distributor. So those problems exist, and that is why the RIA framework is what I believe is a fairer framework for the investor. Now, that being said, there are less than 1,000 RIAs in India. So and there are more than 2 lakh mutual fund distributors. So how do people get access to an RIA? That was the key idea behind starting Handa Uncle, that there needs to be some method via which people can get unbiased, high quality advice. So that is why at Handa Uncle, that's what we are trying to provide, because AI can actually provide you unbiased, high quality advice. And that's the framework we are working on. So we'll have a fixed fee. So we have started some sort of beta testing with 500 rupees a year and 1,000 rupees a year, but some sort of a low fee model is what we are going to go with. And it will provide you the sort of advice that you would expect any of these bank relationship managers, mutual distributors, or your chacha ka ladka to tell you about what to do with money, etc. So that's broadly what we are trying to build. So that's
Correct.
The broad idea that we have.
It looks fabulous. And Ravi, just on that topic, because we are on Handa Uncle, you built a startup, you've sold it to Academy in the past, and now you're building this startup in the personal finance journey. And I know you have a team in Bangalore. How has that experience been? Share something about your experience, and especially in the light of so many layoffs. And I'm just trying to connect these two, Ravi, because I'm seeing a ton of layoff happen. I'm into executive search, headhunting, and I know a ton of people are losing their jobs, whether it's big tech, early stage startups, services companies. And when people like Eric Schmidt and others say this is the best age for people to build companies, everybody gets excited. But when they sit down to build something, there are a million ideas out there. How does one focus? How does one build the muscle, the conditioning to build a company? Because I'm sure there's a journey to be covered. Like, can you share something on that?
Sure. See, I'm sure. So to each his own. So when I built my first company, the motivations, the ideas were very, very different. So when I was starting my previous company, the idea was that there exists a way that I can use the new technology, which is the internet, the internet videos had become really popular, so that I can teach online. And instead of teaching in a classroom, if I teach online, I can reach out to a much larger audience. And even if I charge a very, very small fee for that, it'll still be, if I gain enough volume, it'll still work out. So that's why I started making video content in 2008. No one was making video content in 2008. I started teaching online in 2012. Very few people, I would not say no one, but very few people were doing that. Less competition makes the entry easier and helps you build a business. If I want to build the same business again today, it's incredibly difficult. I cannot compete with the sort of guys who are available online today and teaching today. They are much higher in caliber in production, in the way they make videos, in the way they make content. I can't compete with that. I know my limitations. Very similarly, this time around also, there is this new technology in AI that exists. There is a problem that exists. And can I become an individual financial advisor? Yes, I can. Maybe I'll get you as a client. Maybe I'll get 10 more of your friends as a client, but that's where it'll end. However, can I get 1 million clients? Yes. With AI, if our tool, is able to solve the problems that I'm hoping it does. Can I get 1 million users on that? Yes, easily. I hope that happens. That exploiting that opportunity part was very much there. The difference which comes in between earlier I was primarily motivated by that, okay, I don't have money. My priority is to make more money and get more money in the game. Right now, money is not really a motivator. As a matter of fact, money is going in the business as of now instead of coming out, because we don't really have clients and hiring tech talent is expensive, as you would know. This time the motivation is to solve really a problem at scale, because I'm well fed. I'm not really that hungry anymore. So people keep talking about, stay hungry, stay foolish, good as a motivation. But boss, the real amount of risk that you can take is when you are well fed, when you have that sort of privilege backing that even if this fails, nothing bad is going to happen to me. And that sort of comfort allows you to take a lot more risks. It allows you to experiment a lot more. It allows you to make spending decisions which you wouldn't be able to make otherwise. So I would say it's easier now to do it and obviously the technology has also made it easier to start companies. The ecosystem has improved. Say, for example, the colleague that I have here, Niharika, who you have interacted with, 10 years ago, hiring someone, an engineering graduate, as the first person without any office was virtually impossible in a place like Jaipur. No one did that because startups were not known, companies were not known, and people were that, okay, I don't know whether this job is going to last or not. This particular point of time, that conversation does not come up with kids. Kids understand. So the kids, with the college kids, understand that, yeah, there is a company which is there. It may or may not exist 1 year down the line. I'll go there, work, learn. And that hunt for stability, that exists. But earlier, people would rather sit at home instead of joining an unstable new company, even 10 years ago. That doesn't happen. The Gen Z takes risks a lot more. With AI, the product that you can build has become a lot easier. With social media, the content distribution part, getting your first customer, getting your first 100 customers is a lot easier today than it was 10, 15 years ago, because there was no way for you to reach out to people that easily. So all of these things have made a difference, and it's definitely much easier in 2026. And I would recommend anyone who's watching, who thinks that it is hard. Yes, I'm not saying it is easy. There is a huge difference between saying that it is easy and versus it is easier than 15 years ago. So I don't know who you were quoting, but he says that yes, starting companies is easier. 100% agrees. It is easier, but it is not an easy task. So that differentiation needs to be there.
Yeah. I was quoting Eric Schmidt, who's the first CEO of Google. I was quoting Sam Altman from OpenAI. And, I've been diving deep into AI for the last 6 to 8 weeks. And I think I'm fairly good now with AI. I'm not no longer, I'm certainly not a pro, but I certainly feel that there's an amazing power of intelligence waiting at my disposal rather. It's almost like you have an AK-47 with you right now and you can use it to your advantage. What are you going to do? Makes all the difference because the power is out there. You got to figure out what you want to solve, use it to the best of your abilities, and that there you go. Ravi, on Handa Uncle, because I know this is a new venture, you're about to launch the app. Like if you were to do an elevator pitch to somebody, like I don't know, if you walk into a building here in Bangalore, and I'm sure you will have a retreat in Bangalore for Handa Uncle, and you meet Nitin Kamath, let's say, the Zero founder. What's the elevator pitch that you would want to give to?
So the elevator pitch is fairly simple, that we are trying to build a personal CFO for every Indian. And that personal CFO for every Indian can be built with AI. It will perform a lot better than most humans because humans don't have the capacity to handle that amount of data. It's very difficult for people to even know what they are worth, where all their investments are. If I ask you that, okay, how many stocks do you have for this particular company and what your asset mix is like, most people would fumble. Most people would fumble about how much money did you spend last month? How much money have you spent last year? But all of that data can essentially be processed by AI in a much faster, much better fashion today and give you a response based on that. So A is very generic advice. Say, for example, you ask me that, okay, someone who wants to get started with mutual funds, what should they do? I would probably say that, they can get started with index mutual funds. They are the low cost option. They have the same amount of risk that active mutual funds
Index
have.
funds.
But the index funds with their low cost makes it a slightly better proposition. But that's a very generic advice. I will be able to give you much better advice if I know how much you earn, how much you spend, how many properties you have, where exactly your current investments are. That I cannot do as a human, but that Handa Uncle can do because it looks at your complete portfolio.
Yeah. And Ravi, because I'm focusing on personal finance myself as well, I keep bumping into these videos about what AI can do and what it cannot do. Let's do a rapid fire, Ravi, and that's the end of our conversation for today. I'll be asking you questions and you just have to say or choose one of the options. First, rich or free?
Free.
Renting or buying?
Renting.
Index or active?
Index.
One purchase that you will never regret?
I don't know. I'm a very regretful person. I regret almost every purchase I make, whether it turns out to be good or turns out to be bad. But I think anything and everything that I have consumed or experienced, most of them I end up liking. Say, for example, if I have something which is really expensive in terms of food or drinks, I have never regretted that. If it's a costly experience that I have had, staying in an expensive hotel. So those are the things that I really, really enjoy. But anything that I have bought, whether it is a stock or a mutual fund, or whether it is a chair that I have bought, or whether it is a house or land or any of those possessions, I always regret them.
Oh, okay. One finance myth that needs to be erased forever.
Finance myth, I would really think that it is about the linking of insurance and investments. That a lot of people think that, okay, insurance, they get LICs or ULIPs, or they get a product that, okay, it will do insurance as well as investment as well. Please don't go into products like that. It's much better. You want insurance? Do insurance. You want investments? Do investments. Linking is never better for you.
That's a very, very wise point. Last, on a lighter note, because you spoke about coffee, if you have to choose between beer and the MI Road Lassi Wala, which one would you choose?
Beer any day. The lassi walas, it makes me, it's too sweet. I have never enjoyed sweet stuff that much, to be honest. And beer is something that I have had a much longer relationship with than with lassi, so to say. So I'll stay loyal to beer on that front.
So Ravi, I think I just want to thank you for taking the time out and speaking to us. And I know this is your nth podcast on personal finance. So thanks for being so patient with me. I wish you all the best with HandaUncle.com, and I look forward to meeting you in person when you're in Bangalore, and hope to stay connected with you and understand all your successes in Handa Uncle and otherwise in life. So thanks again for being here and spending time with us.
Thank you.